No, sire, it's not a revolt. It's a revolution. Francois de la Rochefoucauld. So everybody knows that it was Dutty Boukman that starts the Haitian Revolution. It's Dutty Boukman's rebellion that it's a failed rebellion, but Dutty Boukman eventually becomes the spiritual leader for Toussaint Louverture and then Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and those two are the most important, most critical, most vital members of the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And I'm not even for sure when or if Toussaint Louverture ever decided to be for independence. I think Jean-Jacques Dessalines pushed for it, and I don't even know when he decided for it. So I don't even know if you can call these 13 years of, tumult the Haitian Revolution, since it was only towards the very end of the revolution that independence seriously crossed the minds of the leader. Now, everybody knows it was Dutty Boukman. So if that was on a test, who was the man who did the voodoo ceremony and then started this rebellion in 1791, in August 22nd, 1791, Dutty Boukman. And then who would be the governor? The governor of Haiti who fought against Dutty Boukman. That person would be, it's the person who led the royalist forces. Philibert. Philibert. How do you forget Philibert? How do you not know Philibert? That was such an easy one. That was a softball question. Shit. Who was the ruling French leader during Dutty Boukman's rebellion? Who was Dutty Boukman fighting against? Just the French, the entire culture of France? None. It was a very specific person, and that person's name is Philibert Francois Rouxel de Blanchelande. Philibert, okay, or Philippe. Philippe Francois Rouxel Viscount de Blanchelande. He was born in Dijon, right? The city of mustard, and he dies in Paris. He's guillotined and on April 15th, 1793. So, Philibert, he puts down Dutty Boukman, right? He pacifies him. He quashes that rebellion, Dutty Boukman's rebellion, but eventually he's going to lose his head, right? Heads are going to be rolling after the Haitian people find out what Philibert did to Dutty Boukman. Heads are going to be rolling. Some quick background for Philibert. He was the governor of Saint-Domingue at the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. 1781, he took Tobago. So Philibert took Tobago away from the British, and then he was governor of Tobago from 1781 to 1784. And then at the end of 1790, he succeeds Governor General de Pinier. De Pinier. P-E-I-N-I-E-R. So Philibert is after Pinier, and then he's the one that leads the royalist forces against Dutty Boukman, quashes that rebellion, kills Dutty Boukman, puts his head on a pike, scares the crap out of anybody that's, would be scared of that sort of thing. 1792, he's replaced by Governor D'Esparbes, and then eventually D'Esparbes would be replaced by Gaul Dufort after June 1793. Now, Philibert is going to be convicted of counter-revolutionary actions and treason, and so Philibert is going to be condemned to the guillotine by a revolutionary court April 11th, 1793, and executed on April 15th. So, in the long run, that's what you fucking get. You want to sit there and try to quash a revolution? You want to be in favor of oppression? You want to be in favor of, stopping the Haitian people from achieving their independence? Then you should get your fucking head chopped off. Okay, so let's recap quickly. The traditional date at the beginning of the Haitian Revolution is August 22nd, 1791. That's Duddy Bookman, that's the voodoo priest, that's where all of these leader of the slaves gather in the forest and decide to rebel. And so that's August 22nd, 1791 under Duddy Bookman. Now eventually Duddy Bookman is going to get killed and his head's going to be put on a stake, right? It's going to be shown to everybody, probably by that Philibert or one of Philibert's men. But in the beginning, they were doing pretty well. So I think it takes about 3 months before they finally catch him. But after 1 week of Duddy Bookman's rebellion, 1,800 plantations had been destroyed and 1,000 slaveholders, French masters, oppressors, had been killed. So 1,000 oppressors had been killed and 1,800 plantations had been destroyed. Right? That's remarkable. Right? Not only are they going after the masters, but they're destroying the means of production too. They're just saying, fuck it all. Fuck everything. This is a wildcat strike. This is Langston Hughes. Does it explode? Yes, it explodes. This is bigger than the mother of all bombs. This is a nuclear explosion, okay? This is mass amount of Haitian slaves, 10-1, sees their overwhelming majority, says fuck the bullshit, and just goes ape shit. They go hog wild. They go Sherman's March to the Sea crazy. They go George Washington genociding all the Iroquois, in northern New York nuts, just like Kanat-Carius, the town destroyer. That's total warfare, where they're burning shit all the way down to the ground. And then it's pretty remarkable that Duddy Bookman wasn't Uncle Tom. He was very repressive. He was a slave master. He was under the boss, but he was the one with the whip. He was the one that had all the power. So maybe he had a change of heart, and maybe he found a conscience, right? Maybe he found some empathy and got sick of the bullshit, or maybe because he was in a position of power, he had men that would follow him into battle. So even though he was mean to them, he thought of them as his soldiers, right? But he was an Uncle Tom, and that's a pretty bad situation when even your kiss asses want to, overthrow and kill you. The French fucked up, right? They oppressed past the point of no return. It's like, here's the line, and the French went all the way over here. Duddy Bookman is the main man, the spiritual leader, right, to St. Louverture, and Dessalines is going to be the one to get Haiti to independence, but it's going to take 12 to 13 years. So Duddy Bookman is 1791, Haitian Revolution completion is 1804, January 1st, 1804 is when Haiti becomes its own country. So we're here in 1791, Duddy Bookman. He was inspired by the 1759 Mackendal Rebellion. Mackendal is burned at the stake. Mackendal is on the face of the Haitian 20 gourd coin, or good. 20 gourd, whatever their coin is, the 20, denomination. And Mackendal is burned at the stake. So all these guys are dying, right? Duddy Bookman is killed, his head's put on a stake. Mackendal, he was the one that was poisoning, and he also led a rebellion too, was getting everybody to poison their masters, and also I believed he tried to rebel, and then they chased him and killed him. So he's burned at the stake. He has a really bad ending, Mackendal does, and then less than 1 year prior to Duddy Bookman's rebellion, Vincent Auger, I think it's Auger, I don't know. Vincent Auger, I even actually looked this up. Auger. I have this forvo.com. This random website that Google pulled up is good at pronunciations. So less than 1 year before Duddy Bookman's rebellion, you're going to have Vincent Auger, who also tried to overthrow the French in Haiti. So you had the Auger rebellion, you had the Mackendal rebellion, you had the Bookman rebellion, lots of rebellions, right? And all these rebellions are going to end in their leader's death. And Vincent Auger is no different. they're going to hammer Uji to death. They're going to hammer all over his body, and then they're going to put him on a wheel, and they're going to break him on a wheel in a public square in Le Cap, Le Haitian, which is in the northern part of Haiti, on February 6, 1791. So they are going to fuck him up, right? And this isn't just, 6 months prior. 6 months prior, this Vincent Uji tried to lead this rebellion and is, hammered to death. Hammered to death. And they're going to say that that has nothing to do with the Haitian Revolution. I guarantee you it has something to do with the Haitian Revolution. It's right there. The dates are 6 months away. How can you not mention this? So Vincent Uji is, I think, should be included in the Haitian Revolution timeline, even though traditional historians do not agree. Now, he is going to be killed with Jean-Baptiste of the Siege of Savannah. So Jean-Baptiste was the black man with Henry Christophe and, all the other 1,000 black Haitians who were fighting for the white colonials, the white slave owners, right, the Americans against the British in the Siege of Savannah. Jean-Baptiste was also there fighting alongside Vincent Auger. Fuck. Vincent for now. Fuck. So they killed all of them in the middle of the public square, or they're putting them on their heads on pikes, showing them everywhere. This is, they're using them as an example. And that's the exact same thing they did with Vincent, the revolutionary. This is also just like Charles Perrault's display of the 1915 foreign occupiers of Haiti. There is a foreign occupation in Haiti in the early 1900s, and Charles Perrault is killed. He was one of the Cacaos leading the rebellion in the mountainous countryside, and they lifted him up and they said, look at your leader now. But it reminded people too much of Jesus. He was too much of a martyr, and it actually inspired people to keep on fighting more. For a quick aside, Napoleon is such a dick. He's such a dick. He's such a piece of shit. Napoleon is such fucking garbage. He is such white trash, okay? He's so racist. Anybody who can respect Napoleon or Mortimer J. Adler, they are one of the biggest racists ever. If you can hear a racist and somehow excuse their racism, you just move it right past, you don't hear their racism, you're a fucking racist yourself, okay? So Napoleon, he didn't want to conquer Haiti so he can get his money back, to get his wealth, so he could have a strategic position in North America. None of those reasons. That is not the main thrust of what Napoleon wanted to do. The main thrust of what Napoleon wanted to do was to stop the progress of black people throughout the world. So Europeans and white people have been, got towns and running water before the, African folks, and so therefore he just wanted to continue that. Why? What's the fucking point? Why would you spend so much money and kill so many people, so much blood, sweat, toil, tears, so much treasure? And for what? What did you gain out of it? Just to stop the black man from progressing. That's it. So Napoleon was a piece of shit. If he had his way, we wouldn't have Usher. Usher is a native son. His ancestor, his dad or somebody, his grandfather came from Haiti. So we would not have Usher today if Napoleon has his way. We also wouldn't have the Count of Monte Cristo or the Three Musketeers. The Three Musketeers, the author was a Haitian, son of a Haitian daughter, the son of a mother, a Haitian mother. So Dumas, Alexander Dumas, somehow he had Haiti somewhere, okay? So the Three Musketeers, and you have Usher, right? If Napoleon had his way. Another big way that Napoleon was anti-revolutionary, the main thrust of the French Revolution, the French revolutionaries were the sans-culottes, and the sans-culottes were the ones who didn't wear the culottes. The culottes were those stuck-up aristocratic pants, those capri pants, the capri pants that Napoleon wears. So the sans-culottes, the reason why they called themselves the sans-culottes is because it literally means without pants. Sans-culottes, the culottes is a kind of pants without pants. But it was a specific kind of pants. It was the pants that of the royal, bourgeoisie, the stuck-up fucking I'm better than you kind of Abercrombie and Fitch fake motherfuckers. You know who I'm talking about, America. So the stuck-up bourgeoisie, that's who Napoleon represents. The sans-culottes were pants. They were wearing pants. They were working-class folks, average Joes. They wore pants, right, that goes all the way down to your legs and goes all the way up to your waist, pantalones. And so they were working-class people. They were the heart of the French Revolution. But Napoleon, he's got those fucking capris. He's wearing capris. He's got that pretty little buckle. He's got those stockings, right, look like leggings for his calf muscles. So he's got capri pants, he's all prettified, and he's the tough fucking, he's a big tough guy, right? I don't know if he wasn't the head of an army, I don't know if he could just fight his next door neighbor, especially being dressed so goddamn pretty. He wouldn't want to get his socks dirty. So Napoleon was Mr. Culottes. He wore the culottes. He was not sans culottes, he was very much with culottes. But Napoleon doesn't violently overthrow the revolutionary French government and destroys and kills the revolution until 1799. So he's actually really far into our story. Let's get back to our timeline. 1759, Mackinac Rebellion. Let's fast forward 30 years, George Washington becomes president. 6 years after the end of the American Revolutionary War for Independence, George Washington becomes president April 1789. And he's going to remain president for 8 years until March 1797, of which he'll hand the torch off to the great John Adams, who was anti-slavery. So just on that one issue, John Adams might actually redeem himself. June 21st, 1789, so this is right after George Washington becomes president. June, April, May, so 2 months, New Hampshire ratifies the U.S. Constitution. So what a great year for America. America gets their president, George Washington, in April 1789, and then the U.S. Constitution is finally ratified when New Hampshire approves of it in June 21st, 1789. So that legitimizes George Washington's brand new, U.S. Constitution, get rid of the Articles of Confederation, brand new government, modern day presidency. Here we go. July 14th, 1789, very far away from Haiti's plantations. The masses of Paris storm the Bastille prison. This is Bastille Day, July 14th, 1789. The Bastille is a medieval fortress, armory, and political prison in Paris. It's known as the Bastille. It represented royal authority in the center of Paris. The prison contained only 7 inmates at the time. 7 inmates, 7 prisoners, 4 forgers. So just 4 people who, signed their name on a bad check. 2 lunatics, quote-unquote crazy people, 2 lunatics, and 1 deviant aristocrat, the Comte de Soulanges, at the time of its storming. I wonder what made him deviant. The Comte de Soulanges. And anyways, those are the 7, right? 1 deviant aristocrat, 2 lunatics, and 4 forgers. That's the prisoners that the storming of the Bastille actually rescued. But the storming was more of a symbol of the abuses of the monarchy. Its fall was a flashpoint of the French Revolution. The king first learned of the storming of the Bastille only the next morning through the Duke of La Rochefoucauld. And King Louis XVI asked his Duke, is it a revolt? And his Duke replies, no, sire, it's not a revolt, it's a revolution. Francois de la Rochefoucauld also had this great quote, which I adore. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time, and it's talking about absence. And he says, absence diminishes mediocre passions, and it increases great ones as the wind extinguishes candles and fans fires. So therefore, it's fanning a fire, right? So great passions, absence only make great passions even greater. and but small passions, absence extinguishes them. They're gone, like a candle in the wind. So 1789 has turned out to be a pretty exciting year. There's the American president, George Washington's first year. The U.S. Constitution has been ratified. Now the storming of the Bastille. And the National Assembly, I think it's the National Assembly, it's going to be the French government, August 26th, 1789, they'll publish the Declaration of the Rights of Man. So the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen is passed by France's National Constituent Assembly in August 1789. It's a fundamental document of the French Revolution and in the history of human and civil rights. The Declaration was directly influenced by Thomas Jefferson, working with General Lafayette, who introduced it. Influenced also by the doctrine of natural right, the rights of man are held to be universal, valid at all times and in every place, pertaining to human nature itself. It became the basis for a nation of free individuals protected equally by law. It is included in the preamble of both the constitutions of the Fourth French Republic, 1946, and the Fifth Republic, 1958, and it is still current. It's inspired in part by the American Revolution, also by Enlightenment philosophers. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen was a core statement of the values of the French Revolution, and it had a major impact on the development of freedom and democracy in Europe and throughout the entire world. This Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, with the Magna Carta, the U.S. Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of this inspired the 1948 United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which of course was written by Eleanor Roosevelt. And Eleanor Roosevelt is a great example for all womankind. She was sitting there flying planes with Amelia Earhart. So, late at night, off the Washington, D.C. lawn. So she's an inspiration for womankind. Women in France, they jumped in the foray too, the melee. October 5th, 1789, right? They must have read the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. And they said, we got to march on Versailles. This is the Women's March on Versailles, also known as the October March. The October days are simply the March on Versailles. It's the most, one of the earliest and most significant events of the French Revolution. The march began among women in the marketplaces of Paris who, on the morning of October 5th, 1789, were near riots. They were inspired by the storming of the Bastille, so women wanted to get in on this too. So on the morning of October 5th, 1789, there was near rioting over the high price and scarcity of bread. Their demonstrations quickly became intertwined with the activities of revolutionaries who were seeking liberal political reforms and a constitutional monarchy for France. The market women and their various allies grew into a mob of thousands. Encouraged by revolutionary agitators, they ransacked the city armory for weapons and marched to the Palace of Versailles. The crowd besieged the palace, and in a dramatic and violent confrontation, they successfully pressed their demands upon King Louis XVI. The women who just marched into the king's palace looked at the fucking king and was like, give us your bread. We know you got some bread in this goddamn palace, and we want to know where the fuck it's at. Our kids are starving. They're hungry. We're not going to be like them Germans and Hansel and Gretel, them out into the goddamn woods. We're going to feed our babies. We're women. We're pissed off. We need some food. Where the fuck is the food, king? So they successfully pressed their demands upon King Louis XVI, and the next day the crowd had compelled King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette and most of the French assembly to return with them to Paris. So October 1790 is when Vincent the Revolutionary is going to attempt his rebellion. Now, Vincent is a wealthy, free mulatto intellectual, and he's going to push for the mulattoes to have the right to vote, but not the black slaves. Free blacks, I think so. He was active in this Amis des Noirs, which is Friends of the Blacks, but his story, and one of his biggest mistakes, is that he is only going to push for the right to vote for his own class. He felt like the free mulattoes and free blacks should be a citizen of France because they were free. And if they weren't free, then why didn't they have a right to vote? So he's going to rebel in October 1790, but he happened to actually be in Paris during all these debates. The French revolutionaries are going to have a bunch of debates in March 1790. He tried to be seated as a delegate from Saint-Domingue, but he was rebuffed, right? He's like, I'm a citizen, and they're like, no, you're not. And he and other Saint-Domingan men of color, had tried to get the General Assembly to specify that the provision for citizenship included the free persons of color. Having found out that, Vincent resolved to return to Saint-Domingue one way or another by power of persuasion or the power of arms, and to force the issue of citizenship for all free persons of color. So he was disappointed with the March 28th decree. He returned to Saint-Domingue via the United States, where it was said he obtained guns and ammunition, and then he was joined by Jean-Baptiste Chavannes, a professional soldier who fought with the French at the siege of Savannah in the American Revolutionary War. And then October 1790, he returns home from Paris. October, right? So March, he argues, didn't get it in the United States, get some guns, and now he's in Haiti in 1790, October, 6 months or so afterwards. And he's been working with Raymond, convinced that a law passed by the French. So Vincent was convinced that a law that was passed by the French Constituent Assembly gave full civil rights to wealthy men of color, or he didn't care and he demanded his right to vote anyways. The colonial governor is going to refuse. Vincent led a brief insurgency in the area around Camp Francois, Cap-Haïtien. He had an army of around 300 free mulattoes. And they wanted to fight to end racial discrimination, at least against the mulattoes. So the mulatto revolt at Camp Francois in October 1790 was quickly crushed. The leaders fled to the Spanish side of the island, but were captured and turned over to the French colonists. Fucking Spanish, right? Even though they appealed to the common interests of whites and mulattoes as slave owners, Vincent and Jean-Baptiste were brutally tortured and executed before being beheaded. There was one slave revolt I want to mention. It happened in 1676. It's on Hispaniola in Portapax, P-A-I-X, Portapax. In Creole, it's Podpay. So at Podpay, it's right across from the Tortuga Island. So the town itself was founded by French buccaneers in 1665. So it's only going to take 11 years from the finding of this town by the French buccaneers before the first black slave revolt happens. And it's Padre Jean or Pedro Juan. Padre Jean, Pedro Juan. He was killed by buccaneers in 1679, 3 years later in the mountains close to Portapax. But he was one of the first slave rebellions in Haiti. And so he's been mentioned as this rebellion had something to do with the Haitian Revolution. And it could have been, it just felt like it was just such a long time ago. So Padre Jean, Pedro Juan, Father John, right? I know that Padre is Father, Jean is John, so Father John is eventually going to overthrow his slave master and try to throw a revolution. He freed the slaves that he could free, and then he goes to Tortuga Island. And he stays in Tortuga Island until 1679 when his location was discovered. And then after this, the French sent some Maroons to kill him. And, of course, we all know that Maroons may refer to Maroon as in people, the Great Dismal Swamp Maroons, a hip-hop group or an album, probably people. Let's take a look at Maroon people. The Maroon people, as soon as this page comes up, are Africans who had escaped from slavery in the Americas and formed independent settlements, the term can be applied to their descendants. So these are free blacks who escaped from slavery, and now they were roaming around as, the free individuals that they were. The term actually comes from the French term mourant, or Haitian Creole mouan, meaning escaped slave. So a maroon is an escaped slave. They would form close-knit communities, practice small-scale agriculture and hunting. They were their own little communist cult, right? Their own little clique out in the woods. Their own little guerrilla band of survivors. Or guerrilla warriors like Che Guevara out in the mountains of Cuba. Sometimes the Maroons would go to the plantations to try to get their other family members and friends to escape with them, to help them, to Harriet Tubman them to freedom. The Taino settlements, the Taino Indians, the few that were left, they would join up. They would unionize the Maroons and the Tainos, at least the ones who escaped the Spanish in the 1600s. It's saying that Mackendall was a Maroon, but I'm pretty sure he was a slave. But I guess maybe he escaped, off the plantation after the rebellion, then he became a Maroon. Bookman, they said, is a Maroon, so I guess after he declared war, same difference, right? So, yeah, I guess they're escaped slaves, but they're more like fighting slaves. They're not really escaping. So, Vincent the Revolutionary meets up with Jean-Baptiste, another free man of color, a militiaman, veteran of the American Revolution. They gather a force of about 200 to 300 free men of color. If he would have included the black folks, the enslaved black folks, the unfree blacks, he could have won. He could have inspired a general slave rebellion, as well as getting a whole other group of people into their, rebellion. So that's amazing, to be honest with you. He's going to do this rebellion only getting 300, mulattoes, mixtures, instead of free mulattoes, not any of the slaves whatsoever. And he's going to fight just for their freedom. So it's almost like they associate themselves with the, white man, and since the white man wouldn't give them the right to vote, then they were going to fight the white man as like friends, but they weren't going to lower themselves, debase themselves as one of their own slaves, because they were wealthy. So I bet these mulattoes were probably slave owners or from the a family of slave owners. Several colonial militia was sent out from Camp Francois, and this 300 group of Vincents was able to frighten several detachments of the colonial militia out. They were scared, they ran away, they tucked their tail, and they ran. Vincent the Revolutionary is going to be brutally executed by being broken on the wheel in the public square in Le Cap on February 6, 1791, and dozens more of his men were also severely punished February 1791, which is just a few months before Duddy Bookman is going to go ape shit on all these French fuckers, these occupying, oppressive sons of bitches. The breaking wheel is essentially just one big wheel, and it looks like the person is lying on their back. They're lying on their back, and then that's how they're going to break them. The breaking wheel is also known as the Catherine wheel, or simply the wheel. It's a torture device used for capital punishment from antiquity into modern times for public execution by breaking the criminal's bones and or bludgeoning him to death. So put him on the wheel. He's all stretched out on the wheel. Now beat the shit out of him. Break his bones. Do whatever it takes. There's definitely some schadenfreude, right? To torture somebody. If you're just trying to kill him, right, well, you don't need to do all this. But I guess if you want to have a big public demonstration, torture him in front of the crowd, make a big game show of it, I guess you do get out the breaking wheel. And it's called the Catherine wheel. Well, this is kind of a fucked up thing. They call the Catherine wheel, named after St. Catherine, because when she touched the wheel that she was going to be broken on, the breaking wheel, then it broke. The entire wheel broke when she touched it, and then she was just beheaded, right? They was like, okay, fuck the torture bullshit. We don't know what the hell's going on here. St. Catherine of Alexandria's got some weird powers where she's breaking our breaking wheel before the breaking wheel can break her. So fuck it, let's just behead her. So this is a Catherine who is worth defending. She does not deserve, her name should not be on this, object, this tool of torture. That's not fair. Now, Catherine the Great, on the other hand, Vincent was easily defeated, right? He only had a small army of supporters. He was tried and then convicted of treason. And it says February 26th here, 1791, and it says that Vincent and Jean-Baptiste, both of them together, were escorted to the church to repent before being taken to the La Place des Armes, where they had their arms, legs, hips, and thighs broken with hammers. So their arms, legs, hips, thighs were broken with hammers, and then they were tied to a wheel and left face upwards in the sun to die. After their death, they were beheaded, and the heads were put on poles on the main road. The barbaric death of Vincent the Revolutionary created a backlash of disgust in France against the planners. The National Assembly eventually passed a decree giving citizenship to all colored persons in the colonies born of free parents, and also making them eligible for seats in the colonial judicatures. When the news of the passage of this decree reached the island, it filled the planners with fury. However, the continuing conflict had given the enslaved people an opportunity to fight for their own freedom, and the second slave revolt broke out August 1791. Father John, Padre John, Pedro Juan. Father John, he was a slave in possession of a Spanish slave owner. So he took a slave owner for a hostage. One of the Spanish ones, the fucking conquistadors. Spanish. Why is it a Spanish one? Are the French even in here? Padre John. That's Spanish, right? Pedro Juan. They're both. No, this is French. So he was assassinated when he took refuge on the La Tortue, right? the Tortuga Island in the mountains. He settled in Point Palmisti, east of the Port de Paix, right? P-A-I-X, that city, and he organized 25 slaves for a rebellion. So Father John tried to, rebel. 25 slaves, they began their uprising near Port Margot, killing slaveholders, and then they retreated into the mountains nearby. Unfortunately, Father John was killed by pirates, buccaneers, who had tracked him down to his mountain retreat in 1679, killed Padre John. Father John gets killed by these unnamed buccaneers, and alongside several of his fellow fighters. The rebellion was one of the earliest recorded in St. Domingue. Today, Father John is mentioned alongside the likes of Duddy Bookman and Francois Mackendal. Jean-Baptiste and Vincent were executed in the presence of the provincial assembly. They all came to watch this, torture of Vincent and Jean-Baptiste and the authorities of Camp Francois. Jean-Baptiste showed great courage during his terrible torture and protested to the very last moment against the oppression of the people of African descent. Jean-Baptiste will always remember you. Dennis O'Brien is an Irish businessman who founded Digicel, and Digicel is one of the biggest companies in Haiti. He's also one of the world's top 200 billionaires in 2015 and Ireland's richest native-born citizen. So Digicel, he's got Digicel all over the Antilles, in the upper Antilles, the lower Antilles, in Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, Aruba, Barbados, Bermuda, Bonaire, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Curacao, Dominica, El Salvador, Fiji, French Guiana, Grenada, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, Martinique, how the fuck do you say that word? Nauru, Panama, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks, Cayos, and Vanuatu. The headquarters is in Kingston, Jamaica. Dennis O'Brien is the man at the very top. He's the executive chairman, and he's the rich motherfucker. 33 markets across the Caribbean, Central America, Oceania. Yeah. 13 million wireless users. I'd say he's got a monopoly. An Antilles monopoly. Good job there, fucking Dennis O'Brien. What a plain name. That could be, how many Dennis O'Briens are there in Ireland? Probably 27 million. Hey, where's Dennis O'Brien? Huh? He say Dennis? No, not you, Dennis. No, the other Dennis. So time goes by fast, right? George Washington becomes the first president of the United States, the modern president under the U.S. Constitution, April 1789. And then right after that, the next year, you had this propaganda war that broken out over the future of the French Revolution, November 1790. Edmund Burke, he attacks the French Revolution with his reflections on the revolution in France. He is defending the ancient regime and very much a conservative stance, November 1790. So George Washington, right, becomes president. Edmund Burke is sitting there saying, fuck you, France, in 1790. And then 1791, Thomas Paine says, no, not fuck you, France, fuck you, England. And he writes The Rights of Man, Part 1. That comes out March 1st, 1791. And that was just right after February 1791 when you had Vincent and the Jean-Baptiste who had just got executed, right, for trying to fight for the right to vote. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Bookman's Rebellion, coming up next. End of chapter 2.